Greetings, welcome to TheQueenElle LLC. This is Queen Elle. Thank you so much for joining me today. This video is about all things related to Saturn. I felt like the timing was perfect as we approach Saturn retrograde, which takes place on June 17th this year. Now, Saturn retrograde is typically about half of every year. So this year it will be from now through November. And again, it starts on June 17th. We are already in the shadow period, which means that some of the energy of this retrograde may already be affecting some people. Now, my intent with this video is to provide an overview of not only the upcoming Saturn retrograde, but also all of the Saturn returns and the different aspects that affect us with regard to Saturn. Now, Saturn is the planet that's all about our purpose, but all about the structure and constraints that we have in life, including our career, including boundaries that we have in life. It just affects us in so many different ways. And as always, I recommend pulling your birth or natal chart, and that way you'll know where Saturn is in your life, where which house Saturn is in, as well as what zodiac sign Saturn is for you. Okay, now you can either search for Saturn natal chart placement or calculator, and it will pull up a free one online, I'm sure. You may also download an app onto your phone. There are free apps out there that will provide you that natal chart information as well. Okay, so let's get started. Now, something that has been somewhat trending online, I've seen it a lot lately, is with regard to Saturn returns. So what is a Saturn return? There are different pivotal moments, milestones throughout our lives that are directly related to Saturn in our life. So I will cover all of those different returns and the aspects, and just what ages even that you will most likely experience this, because this is when Saturn is making different moves within our lives. Okay, now the Saturn return is the point in time where Saturn, down to the degree of placement where Saturn is, Saturn returns to where Saturn was at the moment that you were born. And that's why I definitely recommend the birth chart pulling, because you're able to see down to the degrees of exactly the moment you were born, down to the minute, as well as the location of your birth, to know exactly where Saturn was out in the solar system at that exact moment. Okay, so Saturn returns are very pivotal moments within our life. The first Saturn return that we experience is when we're about 29 and a half years old. So those late 20s, and it's approximately between the ages of 27 and 31, we essentially, as far as the universe is concerned, we put our youth behind us and truly enter maturity. Okay, now the second Saturn return takes place between the ages of 56 and 60 years old. This is about the time when we may identify the desire to retire, to essentially move on to the next chapter of our lives. And then as far as the universe goes, we technically become an elder during this time. Now, the third solar return that takes place, if we are blessed to reach this age and beyond, is between the ages of 84 and 90 years old. And it's a time for us to reflect on our lives and to see if it's been, a job well done as far as fulfilling our life's purpose, or if there is even another opportunity to, switch things up a little. We're never too old to do that. I will tell you that Saturn returns can be tough, because it's a time where we are being forced, either by circumstance or by choice, to really reflect, to look at the lessons, if any, hopefully many, that we have learned in the previous years leading up to that Saturn return, And hopefully the lessons that we have learned, with that being said, by the time we get to our next Saturn return, it's a bit easier. We're not, you know, in need of resolving those same things and, you know, helping to fix any type of repetitive, destructive patterns and behaviors in our life. So hopefully you've learned from all of those lessons, and then you're able to elevate and move on to the next level, the next chapter of your life. While Saturn returns can be rough, they don't have to be. Saturn returns can also be a very fulfilling time, because again, it's an opportunity to shift, to move on to the next chapter, and like going out with the old and, you know, beginning anew. This could be a very rewarding time for you as well. It just depends on if you were truly focused on your holistic wellness or not during the time leading up to it. Now, there are some major Saturn transits that include these returns, but I did want to dig a bit more into what those returns were. So I'm going to move through this list. So, and I will have timestamps with regards to the topics regarding Saturn for this video. I don't usually do that, but I'm doing that for this one because it's a lot. But definitely save this video, take notes, you know, if that is helpful as I go through all of these major Saturn transits. The first major Saturn transit that we experience in our life is around the age of 7. It's a point in our life where we have our first square. So Saturn waxing square takes place during this time. It's where children will start to exert their independence and will start to question things and not just go with the flow. It's essentially known as the age of reason within different cultures. Now, the next transit is around age 14, and this is our first opposition. This is, as you know, we're entering adolescence and also questioning life as you know it. This is when you really start to question the boundaries that have been put in place by whomever your caregivers are, your parents or guardians, the structures that you see in your education, wherever your school environment is, as you start to work outside of the home. If that is taking place during the teen years, you really start to view the world and question your place in it. So then we have, at the age of 21, we have Saturn waning square. Now, this is the time where essentially we feel pressure between on the inside, not necessarily feeling like an adult, but society pressing us, especially if you live in America, society pressuring us to grow up, essentially, when, as far as development goes, we're not fully considered mentally developed until the age of 25. However, at 21, we have that Saturn transit, and it's because of the pressure, the external pressure that we feel to operate in a certain way, but it not really aligning with who we still are on the inside. Now, next we have the age of 28, and that is our first Saturn return. So remember, I mentioned the late 20s. We have those Saturn the first Saturn return. So I've already discussed that, so I won't cover that again. Next we have, at the age of 40, that is our first trine. And if you have not seen any of my planetary aspect information or my planetary aspect video, I will link that above just to give you a bit more insight. So where square is about facing things head on and confronting things and resolving things in our life, trine is it's a lot of synergy and it's energy blending together. At the age of 40, there is a sense of stability in who you are, a sense of self-awareness, and also a strong emotional intelligence. Now, don't get me wrong, there are external factors. There is the concept of nature versus nurture. There are just different environmental constraints that may directly impact whether one truly experiences all of these things at this time frame, but this is generally what naturally occurs within our lives, okay? Next, we have the age of 42. This is our second Saturn opposition. Now, the first one was entering adolescence at 14, thereabout. this one around 42. And again, like I said, it may vary as far as the exact time frame, but this is around the time that you can expect this. This is the point when one may experience a midlife crisis. No, it doesn't mean that this individual will move on and transition into the ancestral realm at the age of 84. It's not exactly the midlife. However, this is around that time frame when one may experience it. So again, it's questioning everything, questioning their place in life. This is essentially a time where one looks over their life so far and identifies whether, you know, this is where they want to be in life, identifies lessons that they have learned throughout life, and looks ahead to see, okay, so now what does the future have in store for me? Where am I at now? Where have I been? Where am I going? Next is the age of 47, and that's when one experiences their second trine. Now remember, I said the first trine was at the age of 40 with self-awareness, and so at 47, the second trine, you're again assessing, okay, so since then, you know, how have things been going, and is this really, you know, am I on track? Am I doing things truly for my wellness? It's just a time to reassess and reevaluate and adjust as need be. And then we move into the age of around 51, where we experience our third square. So this is that conflict resolution that I was talking about, where one really looks at, okay, not only, you know, where have I been, where am I going, but what am I doing that needs to be tweaked in my life? What areas are out of balance that I need to realign? And then we move on to the age of around 54. So 54 through 59, those late 50s, that is the time of your second Saturn return. So remember, I said at the beginning of the video that the Saturn returns are all about just pivoting, deciding, okay, it's time to, you know, start the next chapter of my life. You know how I said that this age, you're also, as far as the universe goes, you are moving into the form of an elder. This is a time where if you have focused on your holistic wellness, especially since the last solar return at the end of your 20s, where you can now reassess, reflect, and think, okay, now, you know, what do I want to do differently now? Not just behaviors and activities, but your life. This is all about your life's purpose. And at this point in the late 50s, sometimes people will either have a major career change or even have plans to retire as well. This also is a great time to start a business, and again, that would be a major career change. Now, we have at the age of 65, that is our fourth square. So the square time, like I said, it's all about facing things head on at the age of 65. It really is not only when those late 50s, the time of the change and the transition, but this is the time to now identify, now that you've made whatever that change was, you know, it's almost like a 5-year plan. So now I can reevaluate, like, okay, and tweak things if necessary, because at this point, it's about longevity. It's always about longevity, but at this point, you're faced head on with, okay, am I still doing some things that no longer serve me or never served me? And if so, what am I going to do about it for my life, for my livelihood? The last 3 Saturn transits, they are specifically about just reassessing, reevaluating. We have at the age of 71, the 3rd Saturn opposition. At 79, we have the 5th Saturn square. And then around the age of 85, we have the 3rd Saturn return. And so this is about your life's reflection. It's about, you know, if you desire to renew and refresh and pivot at this time, you're never too old to do so. But this is ultimately about reflecting over your life and to see what your life's work, your legacy has been. So now that we've covered all of those major transits for Saturn, now we're moving into this upcoming Saturn retrograde. So this retrograde is in Pisces, and we are currently in the shadow period. So that means that the energy that we will feel with the Saturn retrograde, it may already be felt at this time. The retrograde is taking place from June 17th through November 4th, but it's starting out in Pisces. So since Saturn entered Pisces on March 8th, this is a time for you to assess what you have done between March 8th and June 17th when the retrograde starts. So what growth has occurred? It's time to question our boundaries as well as the systems, those structures that we have in place, so that we may reassess them. If you have any type of stagnant energy that you feel with regard to your career or with regard to your personal development, this is a time to reassess those activities that you have in your life, the choices that you've made. Also, stagnant energy is a sign that that's an area of focus that you need to have with regard to reassessing those boundaries and choices, okay? Now keep in mind, like I said, definitely pull up your chart and find out where Saturn is in your chart. Not only what zodiac sign, but the actual house that has Saturn in your chart. Now, the zodiac mode will play a major role, the mode being fixed, cardinal, or mutable. For instance, with Pisces being a mutable sign, if Saturn is in a mutable sign in your chart, then you will feel this energy strongly. Also, if you're looking at the house that Saturn is in your chart, you'll identify the area that discipline, boundaries, and restrictions, including those that are self-imposed and those that are imposed by external forces, they'll need to be reassessed and reevaluated at different times throughout your life. Okay, I may follow up with a short video right on the verge of June 17th, or at the very least, I know I will mention it in my weekly astrology video. But definitely, if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask them in the comment section below, and it will be my pleasure to answer them. But I know it's a lot, and Saturn really all of the planets have different transits throughout our life, but Saturn is all about our career and all about our sense of purpose and placement here this lifetime on Earth. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today. Peace. Ashe.